Patriots still coming off a loss. They fell 41-21 to the Houston Texans. Go to 1-5 on the year. But May watch in New England, Drake Maye's debut.
Yes.
243 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. 2 of those touchdowns, 35 and 40 yards.
Yep.
Yes, 2 interceptions, but we saw the flashes on why he was a number 3 overall pick. And this looked like a competent offense with big playability.
Yes.
Trav, we're feeling good. How you feeling today, my man?
Moral victory is how I'm feeling, George. It was a loss, but we knew coming into the season this team was going to lose an S-ton of games. That ain't no shocker, but we saw the future, and the future is now Drake Maye showing us flashes, pops, that he's going to be just fine. I love it, GB.
So that's what is the big part, and this is the important thing for fans. Like, if anyone was going into Sunday thinking the Patriots are going to win, I love your optimism. Keep it. But bottle it up for next year and the year after when the real building blocks are built around this Drake Maye. And if Drake Maye can get out of this season in one piece, because he has 11 games remaining where he's going to take a beating similar today. Still sacked 4 times, hit 10, 14 pressures, 13 of those for the Texans coming without a blitz.
Yep.
But Trav, what do you walk away from this game feeling about Drake Maye making his Patriots debut? And again, this passing game showing layers we haven't seen. The first time they've cracked 20 points this season. And Drake Maye in one game has more touchdown passes than Jacoby Brissett had in his previous 5 starts.
Right now, currently, I have more faith in Drake Maye, the player, than I do the franchise responsible for building around Drake Maye. I mean, look at this game, George. It's a microcosm of what, unfortunately, I think the future could be. In this game alone, he had no time. He has no weapons. Pop Douglas is not a bona fide number 1 wide receiver. He is a good player, but he's really a great third option, a decent second option at best on most teams. He had no defense against the Texans at all. They put up 41 points like it was nobody's business. C.J. Stroud, by the end of this game, had his feet kicked up, chilling. Okay, please. No creativity in the play calling. Alex Van Pelt. You have a dual threat quarterback. You got him standing back there like Jacoby Brissett. What's going on there? Drake Maye played well in spite of all these things, George. I have no confidence in the franchise around him, but I have all the confidence in the world in the player, Drake Maye.
Look, if I'm a Patriots fan, I am walking away from Sunday hopeful, optimistic, and excited. Let's think about what Drake Maye just did. He threw for 243 yards, ran for another 38 on the ground, and you can tell within the system they wanted to keep him from fleeing the pocket early, relying on his off-platform and athletic ability, which I think Alex Van Pelt should get around to. But this is a rookie quarterback, 22 years old, number 3 overall pick, with one of the worst offensive line and wide receiver rooms in the league.
Preach.
Throwing for 243, 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, one of which was his fault. The other one is just a hell of a play by the Texans.
It got tipped, right? Yeah.
Yes, losing his starting left tackle and left guard mid-game with a center that's a practice squad center that didn't know he was starting until Sunday morning in front of him. And overcoming all this against one of the best defenses in the NFL. There's the promise. On that touchdown pass to Kayshon Boutte, 40-yard bound, down the right sideline, dropped it in the bucket.
Yep.
A pass play in which Drake Maye and Kayshon Boutte identified the Texans are sitting on a lot of our routes. Let's go with the deep shot. In a 2-minute drill, that was on 2nd and short.
That's right.
I love that aggressiveness. Hey, if we don't get it here, cool. We have 3rd and very manageable in front of us. The touchdown pass to Pop Douglas, that came on the same pass attempt we saw twice previously. The first one, a pass he sailed over Pop's head, which was an interception. The second one, he threw behind Pop Douglas, which could have been 6, and then he got it right the 3rd time. That progress throughout the game. Patriots fans have to love what they saw from Drake Maye. I still have my worries about the play calling.
Me too.
Still have my worries about the offensive line.
Me too.
I still have my worries with him making it throughout the season.
Yeah.
But you walk away from this feeling really good, Trav.
Yeah, well, listen, about him finishing the season, right? George, we saw this guy take shots after shots against the Texans. I mean, the one where his arm got all cocked up and then he got slammed to the ground. His throwing arm at that, like, George, like, I mean, my heart skipped 7 beats. I thought it was over. He got up. He kept coming at him. The moxie, the toughness. I think this kid's going to be just fine. And that's one of the reasons why the play calling really disturbs me in a sense. Because you're not even trying to, like, utilize his gifts. George, how good would this guy be on a bootleg? on a design RPO. Give him some options. Let him get out there in the space. Is he going to throw it down the field? Is he going to tuck it and run? Give him some options here. I trust him to protect himself on the run. I'm not saying go out there and run him like a running back. But, George, I mean, the fact that they're just asking him to drop back and stand in the pocket, yeah, sure, he can do some of that, but he can also move. And it shouldn't be running for his life or trying to extend a play. And we saw him tuck and run many times today with success. These should be designed. Some of this stuff should be designed.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it. And I almost think with the play calling, you're setting him up to take sacks and to get hit and to get hurries and pressures. When as bad as this offensive line is, George, and as bad as these wide receivers are in creating separation, you could do the kid a favor by getting him on the move and buying more time for these dudes to get open, getting them on the move so the assignment for the offensive line is not as tough to stand back there and try to keep someone off of them for 5 seconds in a clean pocket. That's hard as hell to do.
Yep.
Especially against a defense they just win against in the Texans. And I know we'll talk about the schedule coming up and how maybe some of these games that we thought would be losses. Maybe now with Drake Maye in there, it's a different outcome, and we'll get to that. But in terms of the Texans, I mean, give the guy cut him a break, get him on the move, let him be creative. The lack of creativity in the play calling, I have more concerns of that getting Drake Maye beat up than the actual Drake Maye play himself. It's just ridiculous.
The one thing I'll give is Alex Van Pelt has to ease Drake Maye in against his defense with this matchup.
Fair.
And think of the other rookie quarterbacks that we've seen grown as the season has come along.
Yeah.
What they were running, what they were doing week one looks far different, and we're only 6 weeks in.
Sure.
It's the same thing. We can't do the comparisons of Drake Maye to Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels for a multitude of reasons. Those guys came out of college with a lot more starts. Those guys are working with much more competent offensive play callers.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams has the best offensive situation of any number one overall pick quarterback in NFL history because of the tackles and receivers and the run game and the tight ends he's working with, right? All that.
Yep.
I'm the same way. 26 of his 42 dropbacks were in shotgun. Heavy on 11 personnel, not a lot of empty.
Yep.
Quick 1-2 reads, but Drake Maye was going through his progressions. I would have liked to seen a read option, an RPO. He was 5 for 5 on play action as well. Like, that is huge.
And they weren't running the ball effectively
at all on a day where you couldn't find any space on the ground. For Drake Maye to do that, to add into all this, that you're doing this while you couldn't run the ball without your starting running back. Again, Ramondre Stevenson was out, and Drake Maye still managed to be so successful. That's where the hopefulness, the optimism, and excitement has to come into play with Drake Maye. You couldn't run the ball. Play action was still working for him. His second touchdown pass, the one to Hunter Henry, that was out of 12 personnel. You get into the red area, you go play action, boom. You make a quick read. You got the hesitation from the linebackers, and you hit them.
Yeah.
They were 3 for 3. Well, 3 for 4. They were 3 for 4 finishing drives. Really, the fourth one, they just ran out of time, and the game ended. But getting into Texans territory, and they finished the drive by scoring 2 of those deep passes.
That's right.
Is a layer of the offense that was missing. With Drake Maye, he was going out and making winning plays instead of making plays to not make mistakes.
That's right.
He wasn't dropping back and going, don't mess up. He was dropping back and going, what do I do with this football? This is what I need to do downfield.
Absolutely.
And that's a difference in degree. And this offense has to be excited. Gerard Mayo said it himself. He felt like the team and the coaching staff failed Drake Maye, and he's right.
They did.
But what you saw from Drake Maye, you have to be so pleased with. I think that is what is huge. As the game went on, he grew. That hurry-up offense they had right before halftime, that was a Kayshon Boutte touchdown. Quick, no huddle. Don't let him think. Just call plays and execute. Did a great job at that. Had a 22-yard completion of Pop Douglas, then had that deep ball to Kayshon Boutte down the right sideline.
You know what's crazy, bro? Just hearing you break that down, the no huddle, because I like that too. Most of your elite play callers in this league would stick with no huddle. Like, oh, that's working. Let's get some up-tempo stuff going at other parts of the game, not just a 2-minute drill here. And by the way, while I'm harping on this, you and I talked about this leading up to the game because Ramondre was banged up. We didn't know if he would play or not, and then we find out late that he's not going to play, right, going into the weekend. But we talked about, and we knew Antonio Gibson would have more of a role in this game regardless if Ramondre played or not. George, this guy has great hands. I mean, in this game, He was not running the ball effectively. 13 carries, 19 yards. That just didn't work. Fine. Credit there to the Texans defense. But he did finish with 3 catches for 24 yards. And they were all just, I'm in trouble, dump offs. If you can run a screen for him, or if you can line him up or put him in motion or put him in the slot, the guy played wide receiver in college. He has great hands. He's one of the backs in this league. You can move around. Here's that word again, creatively. Yet, all you get with Antonio Gibson, who's not a 3 yards and a cloud of dust kind of back, is this kind of production. That's a missed opportunity in a game where you could have utilized him in a much different way. It looked to me, I know Booty had a touchdown there, but it looked to me a lot like Pop Douglas was the only one like getting loose and having creativity within the framework of the offense. That has to change. Mm-hmm. Now, he did it because he's that kind of player. But I just believe that some of this stuff should be schemed. It should be schematically where you're getting guys open. You're using creativity. You don't get motion. You don't get I'd live for a trick play. You don't get trick plays. You don't get anything. I mean, this is as boring of an offense as I've ever seen in my life. And I hear you with, you don't want to throw too much at Drake Maye early, but it damn sure, one thing I did not see from this game in a good way, it didn't seem like Drake Maye was out of control ever. It felt like he was in control the whole game to me, which tells me logically, bring it on. Throw the kitchen sink at the kid. Open up the playbook. Let him play. He sat long enough, for God's sakes. This isn't week 1. Let's go. Let's get this. If he's out there, I got to assume he's ready. He is up to speed. I think this is a lack of creativity from this coaching staff. I know I'm harping on, obviously, Van Pelt, but Gerard Mayo, all of them. Like, you have to let this kid utilize his gifts. They always say know your personnel, right? I mean, this kid shouldn't just be tucking and running because no one's open or the protection breaks down. You should have some plays where you get him on the move. You have other pieces. Pop Douglas, Antonio Gibson. These are game-breaking type players. Use them. Use them that way. I'd like to see Pop Douglas get a couple reverses. I mean, they don't do anything. Bubble screens. Just get the ball in his hands in other creative ways, George. We're not seeing enough of that. I don't think we will.
I'm fine with the usage of Pop Douglas. I mean, he had 9 targets, 6 catches.
He could have more.
One of those going for 35. It was 92 yards. He was good after the catch. But it's the limitation of personnel with this offense. This was a static offense, though. And think about the one time when there finally was pre-snap motion, like Hunter Henry lining up in the backfield, going from tight end to fullback. And then Drake Maye has a false start. I was excited to see what would happen there, and that's them doing that after a big gain. But I'm with you. It's pre-snap motions. Yes. It's motions at the snap where you see a lot of teams succeed. And the motions at the snap is as simple as you have a pulling guard, even if you go play action and pass pro, relocating, resetting the pocket. Get Drake Maye out there on movement on the bootleg. And he said it in the game leading up, like, don't hunt off platform, stay on schedule, play within the system. Mm-hmm. What makes Drake Maye great is his off platform, is his athleticism.
That's what I'm saying.
Is playing off schedule. Don't confine him to your system, Alex Van Pelt, because really it's not that good. Let's get into what some of the key takeaways are. You kind of hit on the play calling.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that jump out to you?
Well, no. I mean, Pop Douglas, again, on this team, he is a number one. And you got to tip your cap to him. You and I both like him. We talked about him ad nauseum in the offseason of how, like, if you got a bona fide number one wide receiver back when we were talking about Brandon Ayuk and all this stuff, I almost felt like Pop Douglas, and I know you felt this way, would be even better having a real number one receiver on the team. It would help Pop Douglas's development even more.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, you don't have that. So you're up, kid. You're the number one guy. And you know what? On this offense, he's doing a great job with it, which is my point of find other ways to get the football in his hands. Like, that's my thing. I understand what you're saying. Well, you're limited personnel-wise. Yeah, George, that's my point. Like, I'm doubling down on that. Because you're limited personnel-wise is why, in my opinion, you need to be more innovative.
Yeah.
If you have an embarrassment of riches in terms of weaponry, like a San Francisco when they're healthy comes to mind. You got McCaffrey and all those dudes. Like, then sure, you could run a vanilla offense and be fine. But that's what makes them great at full health, George, is you have the ingenuity and the innovation of Shanahan and that offense and all those weapons. Well, now you have a team knocking on a championship door, as we've seen them doing for years. So that's my thing. If your personnel is lacking, then you as a play caller, you as a coach, should be looking to enhance what you do have by smoke and mirrors. Fine. They don't do that enough for me. But Pop Douglas, in spite of all that, and Drake Maye are my takeaways. Both of those guys stood out in spite of the things that I'm complaining about.
Yeah, I like to see the usage of Drake Maye. A lot of shotgun. And this is a guy that struggled under center all training camp long.
That's right.
And with
the center issue.
A center you literally signed earlier this week, had 2 practices under his belt in New England, and then he's starting Sunday. Again, against this defensive front, that's tough. 26 of Drake Maye's 42 dropbacks were in shotgun. Heavy 11 personnel with some 12 mixed in. Not a lot of empty sets, always having a tight end on the field. We saw that emergence of Kayshon Boutte with Tyquan Thornton scratched. KJ Osborne was a non-factor, but when you have Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne, you can only get so redundant on the outside. I liked what I saw from Pop Douglas. He was a man beater. He's a chain mover, but he was getting open, and he was the guy. He was his security blanket, the safety net for Drake Maye. There's a clear connection between the two of them. 9 targets, 6 catches, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. The first receiver for the Patriots to go 90-plus yards receiving since Kendrick Bourne, December 24th, 2022, in that loss to the Bengals. First time in almost 2 years.
Wow.
That's big. They got that from Pop. The offensive line, I'm always going to go back to that, and that stuck out to me. Again, you lose your starting left tackle and left guard mid-game, who really were backups, but they were your starters.
Sure.
You start out with a center that didn't know he was starting until the morning, and he's just figuring out how to get to Gillette Stadium, let alone how to run the playbook.
Me?
The Drew scheme. Me?
I'm starting.
Against them? Yeah, Ben Brown, welcome to New England. And that's a guy that was like primarily a right guard at Ole Miss.
Yes.
And has been like a center in 3 years as a practice squad guy throughout the NFL.
It's been musical chairs on that O-line, George.
Will Anderson had 3 sacks of his own. Woo. He had that tip on the attempted screen where Eric Murray made a ridiculous play.
Yeah.
But they finished with 4 sacks, 10 hits. So Drake Maye's getting hit 14 times.
Yep.
They also had 14 pressures. And even the last sack that Will Anderson had, that was Drake Maye, indecisive through his reads. He had 5 seconds, literally 5 seconds, counting it, tough on the stopwatch before Will Anderson swallowed him from behind. Those are the hits Drake Maye can't take. And that's when it comes to, all right, Alex Van Pelt, you're telling Drake Maye something. He has to have that internal clock. Your legs are good. Let's keep in mind, Drake Maye ran for over 500 yards his final season at UNC.
That's right.
A lot of that coming off the scramble. Like, he's a very good, very athletic quarterback.
Yes,
we saw the flashes. He ran for 38 yards. If it helps him avoid getting hits and tell him to go out of bounds or slide, then you have to let him do that. I want to see Alex Van Pelt. Let him do more. The biggest black eye on this game, though, Trav, Patriots defense was not good today.
Terrible.
Christian Gonzalez was getting diced up by Stephon Diggs. Their run defense, Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce, averaged 8.7 yards per attempt. They combined for 170 yards and had 2 touchdowns. So just the running backs alone ate them up. Overall, as a team, including some C.J. Stroud scrambles, almost 7 yards a rush. They ran for a total of 192 yards on this Pats defense.
Bro.
They couldn't stop anyone. At points, they were left out to dry by the offense and the bad turnovers, but this defense was bad for New England, too.
You said it. I mean, look, here's the reality, George, and you know this. We all know this. We knew this coming into the season. We don't even have to get to this point of the season to feel this way. You are not good enough as an offense to have your defense be bad, to have as many penalties, stupid penalties, as the Patriots have. And you
2
certainly
DPIs the first 2 drives.
Oh, come on. And you certainly can never lose a turnover battle. I mean, look, if your defense is bad, you get penalized and turns, you're going to lose every single game. If you can at least, this is where I put a lot of pressure and blame this week on Drake Maye. Because, hey, man, say what you want about Robert Saleh and the Jets. Like, that dude had the defensive side on point, George. And they were disciplined. They were a disciplined team. You know, they weren't getting the offensive production, obviously, and we know what happened to him. But if you're Drake Maye, bruh, you got the defense has to show up every week, and I get the injuries and the police blotter stuff. I get it. But you still have to have that defense on point. You gotta not your team can't shoot themselves in the foot with penalties. That's on a coaching staff and discipline. And then you got to win the turnover battle. If you take care of those things now, from what we've seen with Drake Maye, as opposed to Jacoby Brissett, I think you're going to steal some games. I do.